Hi, guys. Welcome to the Curated Pages podcast.
Your place for curated reads, honest reviews, and thoughtful book talk. I'm Haley.
And I'm Adria. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow along to stay updated each week. Now, let's get into today's episode. Let's get into our current read. So my current read is The Girl I Was by Jeneva Rose. And this is a book that Haley recommended to me last week, and I'm about halfway through. So this one, like we said last week, is about Alexis Spencer. She cannot stop thinking about all the choices that led her to the life she has now, a life she is far from happy with. She is convinced that if she had made different decisions as a teenager, everything would have turned out better. So when she's unexpectedly given the chance to go back in time and meet her younger self, Alexis sees it as an opportunity of a lifetime. Determined to prevent the mistake she believes ruined her future, Alexis begins guiding her younger self toward different choices, hoping it will finally create the life she always wanted. Oh, so far, I don't know what to think of this one yet. I think the premise is super, super interesting, but Alexis as a character drives me crazy, which is the point. That's the point of her character. But
Yeah.
I think Jeneva Rose has done an excellent job crafting her character and her life. And I think the story is well written and it is very interesting. It's just harder for me to not follow, but harder for me to want to pick up because of who Alexis is as a person. Just, you know what I mean. She's the type of person who blames the world for everything instead of taking any responsibility. And it's just frustrating, but fascinating at the same time to be in her head. I'm really interested to see where it goes from here. And like I said, I'm about halfway through, but it still feels like she has made no progress in changing things. I don't know how, but she's just back in time and doesn't even know what to do.
Yeah, I feel like the first half of that book, she's really trying to get her past self to do all the work, to do all these changes. She's not trying to do any like self-reflecting at all in like her current self. So she is a very infuriating main character. I will give you that.
Yes. There was one part, obviously no spoilers, but with one of the other characters where even though they were best friends for years, just now she's opening up to her when she goes back in time. And it's like, what in
Yeah.
the world? What type
Yes.
of horrible person were you and bad friend were you? It's
I was like,
just
these are
ridiculous.
supposed to be like your best friends and you just didn't share your life at all with them. Like, it was more of like a superficial friendship, it seemed like.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it.
All right. So my current read is The Names by Florence Knapp. And this is the one that Adria recommended to me last week. I am almost done. I think this book is in segments of 7 years. And I think I'm almost I have one more. I'm be starting the last 7-year section next once I'm done with this chapter. So going over, I know she kind of said last week what it was about, but just for a little refresher for those of you, this book takes place in 1987, and Cora takes her newborn son to register his birth while living under the control of her abusive husband, Gordon. At the registry office, she must choose between 3 names, each carrying a different future for her son: Gordon, Julian, or Bear. The book then tells the story of the boy's life across 3 alternate versions depending on his name. It shows how that this single decision shapes not only his identity, but the lives of his entire family over the next 35 years. So far, like, I'm almost finished with this book. I think I'm at the point where he's 28. So I only have the final stretch left. Overall, I'm really enjoying it and I'm curious to see how it ends. The concept is super interesting. I love the alternate reality timelines. I think it might be easier for me to follow if each name had its own full section. Like if we had one continuous timeline for Bear, one for Julian, and one for Gordon, instead of jumping between all three within the same year. I can still follow what's happening, but I do occasionally mix up the details because I'm essentially reading the same timeline in three different parallel universes with different outcomes. That said, it's still a very strong read so far. The premise makes this worth it, and I'm invested to see how this all wraps up. But that's the only like tweak that I could make. I'd rather read each name in its entirety instead of in the year sections. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me, but I've also read the book, so
Yeah.
um, I think I had that same critique. I still gave it a 5 star because I thought it was fantastic. And it's also her debut novel, I think. I'm pretty sure it's her debut novel. So it's like I was really impressed. Yeah, I definitely agree that sometimes it's a little hard to follow and remember what details for which part.
I think especially because I think it's Bear and Gordon. They both have like, I don't wanna say like the same love interest, but I get confused. I'm like, "Oh, wait, is this timeline or this timeline?" Because the girl is the same, like, in both. And then trying to I think we talked about this, I don't know how to say her name, Maya or I think we're just gonna say Maya. Um, Maya's different, like, love interests, and I think the Bear version and the Gordon. And sometimes like, "Wait, which one is which?" Like, it's just once I get my bearings, I'm fine, but I think it would have been easier to read the entire 35 years for each name instead of how it is, because it is a little jostling going between like, okay, here's when he's age 7, Bear. Now we're at age 7, Julian, all in the same section, and you're just like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And then I need to remember what happened in all of those for the next year. And it just takes me a second, like, to get my bearings with it, but it's really good so far. It's really interesting. I love the concept of it.
So for today's episode, to help things flow a bit better, we're going to move our discussion before our review section. So this week's discussion is about overhyped versus underhyped books. So let's get into it. So for our first question, when do you consider a book to be overhyped and when do you consider it to be underhyped?
For me, an overhyped book is when someone really talks it up. If they're telling me that it's life-changing, unforgettable, the best book ever, I am going into this book with very high expectations. I'm going to expect more from this book than if I was just to naturally find it on my own and read it for myself. So sometimes I feel like I get recommendations like that and it just does not live up to that hype to me. And we'll get into that with our book reviews, but that's how I interpret overhyped. And then underhyped, to me, these are the books that stick with me for years. They are books that I'm always recommending to people, and it's usually books that were not recommendations to me. Like I found them on my own. And in my eyes, that means that they're not really hyped up. I don't see them on book tech. I don't hear about them from my friends reading them. I just stumbled upon them and then loved them. And now I'm recommending them to people. What about you? What do you consider to be an overhyped or underhyped book?
So for me, an overhyped book is when it's got a really, really high rating on something like Goodreads and everybody's talking about it online. And like you said, they're just raving about it. It's so amazing. And then I read it and I'm like, what are you talking about? No, it wasn't. Like, did you actually read the book? That's how I feel when it's overhyped. For me, with underhyped, it's books that, like you said, you don't see anywhere. Nobody's talking about it, but then you read it and you're like, this is absolutely amazing. It was so well written. The plot was great. The characters were great. And it just made a huge impact on me, but nobody else seems to have heard of it. Or the rating was super low on something like Goodreads, but I gave it like a 4.5, 5 stars when it on Goodreads average is like 3.5, something like that.
Do you feel like rereading a book can make it feel underhyped or overhyped, or does your opinion stay the same even after you've reread the book?
So I feel like yes, and even just not even doing a full read, but sometimes just some reflection after the fact can make me change my opinion. So like the book I'm going to be talking about, Fourth Wing, when I first read it, I really enjoyed it, but then I sat with it for like a month, thought about it, and I'm like, this actually wasn't a good book. It was so overhyped. And I feel like part of my opinion on it was shaped by other people because a lot of my friends raved about it. Everybody was raving about it on TikTok because Onyx Storm just came out. And it was just so overblown that I felt I definitely got influenced by it, in my opinion. And then when I sat with it for the next couple of months, I'm like, I didn't actually enjoy it that much. It was
Yeah.
not that good.
So I feel like I'm kind of the same way. And I also feel like where I'm at in my life can affect how I view a book as well. Like, my sister-in-law highly recommended to me a man called Ove, and I read that at a very, very rough time in my life. Like, I should not have read that book when I read it. It took me from March to July to read that book. She ranted and raved about it and just said how much she loved it, and it's like her favorite book of all time. And I just, like I said, I was not in the right mindset in my life at the time to sit with that book. And it wasn't a bad book, but to me, it was overhyped. Like the way my sister-in-law talked about it, I was expecting more. And I think that would be a book, if I was to reread it, my mind would probably change because I'm coming into it with a different outlook on life even. It was not a good time in my life to read that book. It was so depressing and so down, and I know, like, it's heartwarming at the end and everything, but, like, the whole book is just so it's just depressing, and it didn't help my state of mind at the time. So, I definitely feel like rereading an overhyped or underhyped book can definitely change my opinion.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, our next question, how much does your mood or life affect your reaction to a book?
Guess I should have looked at that question. But, yeah, piggybacking off what I just said, I definitely feel like depending where you're at in life and just even the mood you're in can really affect how you view a book too. Like that, like I was more depressed in my life at that time, and then I'm reading a depressing book. And so I feel like that combo is gonna be bad. I'm not gonna view it in a good light, I feel like. So if I was to reread it like now, I think I would view it in a different way and I'd probably enjoy it a lot more. But just with where I was at in my life, that dark and depressing of a book just was not what I needed. So I definitely think mood and just what's going on in your life can affect how you view a book. What about you?
Yeah, so for me, if I am in more of a reading slump and I try to read, I'm probably not gonna like the book, even if it's a book that I would absolutely love. I can't think of a specific example right now. Oh, no, I can. The first book, Red Rising, first one in the trilogy, I was I wasn't in a slump, but I wasn't in the right headspace to read it, and I did not rate it as highly as I would have had I read it now. Because the second book, I absolutely loved it. The first book, I think I would have liked it even more, but I was just not in the right mood to read it. um, so I definitely think it can affect that.
Have you ever felt like a book was popular for the wrong reasons?
Oh, definitely. Like a lot of romantasy books, I feel like they get hyped up based off of the tropes and the male love interest. Like I'm kind of biased, but I don't think that's the main reasons to love a book is what tropes it follows. Um, I feel like the plot itself and the way it impacts you, what it's talking about, the themes, those are the things that should be hyped up, and that's not usually what's being hyped up about a book. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely feel like you even said Fourth Wing. It was a very hyped up book, and I've talked about this before. I enjoyed the actual story of Fourth Wing, but I feel like it was so hyped up that, again, I was expecting more, and then it was a lot more smutty, and it was a lot more, I would say, I don't want to say like romance, but it was. It was more of like a romance, a romantasy book, and that's just not really my thing. And I found with that book that I don't mind fantasy in some aspects because I did really enjoy, like I said, the actual story. But definitely, like you said, the tropes, all those, I feel like can make a push a book to be popular, even though it's not really that good.
And with Fourth Wing, it's not even like that good of a romance. It's just like lust. And it's supposed to be enemies to lovers, and it's not even enemies to lovers. It's literally like enemies, but they're immediately attracted to each other. So it doesn't hit right. And then they fall in love, fall in lust is the better way to say it, way too soon. So then the rest of the books, you're just like, what kind of conflict or tension is going to be in this? And then it's just miscommunication and all that stuff that is not good.
Yeah, I feel like it's not enemies to lovers. It's almost like a like Romeo and Juliet type thing. Like they're not supposed to like each other. They're not supposed to love each other. So I wouldn't really say they're enemies, like you said, enemies, because I feel like they were immediately like attracted to each other, but they knew that based on their backgrounds, they should not be together.
Mm-hmm.
So to
I
me,
feel like
that's,
that's a good way to put it.
yeah.
So, last question. How does hype affect your expectations of a book? Can that cause disappointment when reading?
So for me, like I said, I think at the very first question, when a book is so overhyped and it's just, this book was life changing, it was the best book I've ever read, I am going into this book with very high expectations. I am going to expect a lot from this. You're you're giving like a rave recommendation of this book. So I am expecting this to be an amazing read. And this is like the great thing about how everyone's so different, that we have different tastes in books and it's fine. But I will have that high expectation. And then if it doesn't live up to that expectation, it just kind of falls flat to me. So then, yeah, it kind of causes the disappointment because it's like, well, this wasn't so amazing, like you said. And I don't want to say like I wasted my time reading it, but like I didn't understand, like, I don't understand where you're coming from with how great of a book this is. Like, I just don't see it. What about you? Does hype affect your expectations of a book?
Yeah, completely. And lately I've been trying to ignore it if there's a bunch of hype, but even then, you still get slightly influenced, even if you're trying to avoid that influence. So I think wholeheartedly hype can affect your expectations, and it will definitely lead you to disappointment or even pleasant surprises for books that like people are saying are really bad. It's like a negative hype, but you read it
Mhm.
anyway and you're like, this was actually really good. So I feel like it can go both ways, like disappointment or surprise, but more often disappointment.
So now on to our reviews. We each picked a book that we wanted to that we considered as overhyped and a book that we also considered as underhyped. So we have 2 reviews each this week. So for my overhyped book, I might get some slack for this, but my book is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. So the synopsis a little bit on this book is: after the death of her husband and the disappearance of her son, Tova Sullivan spends her nights working the cleaning shift at a small aquarium in the Pacific Northwest. Her quiet routine changes when she forms an unexpected connection with Marcellus, a remarkably intelligent giant Pacific octopus, who has the habit of observing the humans around him a little too closely. At the same time, a young man named Cameron arrives in town searching for answers about his own past and the father he's never known. This blends humor, heartbreak, and hope, and it's a very character-driven story about grief, connection, and the unexpected ways people find their way back to one another, even if it's through the help of an octopus. So my review on this book, I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but this one just did not land for me. It did not fully land for me. My sister-in-law hyped this book up a lot before I read it. And then with all the buzz around it about becoming a movie, which it now is a movie. I read this, I think, last year before it was officially a movie. And I went into this expecting something that would blow me away. Instead, I thought it was just all right. I gave it 3.5 stars because I did enjoy parts of it. It's heartfelt, it was easy to read, and Marcellus the octopus obviously stood out. Being able to read the thoughts of an octopus was definitely a different take on a book. But overall, it just did not stick with me the way I expected it to. I finished it, I enjoyed it enough while reading, and then just kind of moved on from it. For me, it falls into a category of it's good, but it's forgettable. I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to recommend it to someone if I was asked for like a must-read recommendation. That being said, I completely understand why so many people connected with it. It ended up being just one of those books where my hype set my expectations just a little bit too high for it.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting, and I don't know how I would feel about it reading it. Like, I have no idea. I didn't even know there was hype around the book, so maybe if I read it, it wouldn't be as bad. I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, I read it. My sister-in-law, I think she listens to a lot of audiobooks, and I have a very hard time doing audiobooks. And she loved the voice for Marcellus. And I think that's what sold it on her. She told me that I need to actually listen to the audiobook to maybe enjoy it more. And I just have a very hard time doing audiobooks. So I listened to a little part of it just so I could hear the voice of Marcellus, so I could get, I would say, more in her mind frame of when she was reading it. And it was all right. It just was all right. I didn't see the hype in it. And then, like I said, with the movie out now, I feel like I hear more people talking about it. And it was just all right. It wasn't a standout read for me.
So for me, we already mentioned it, but I chose Fourth Wing. That's the overhyped book. So I'm sure everybody knows what this one is about, but I'm going to say it anyway. Fourth Wing follows Violet Sorengale, who planned on living a quiet life as a scribe surrounded by books. But when her mother forces her to join the Writers' Quadrant at Basgiath War College instead, Violet is thrown into a world where people literally die during training to become dragon riders. The problem? Violet isn't the strongest or toughest person there, and everyone around her seems to think she won't survive. There's also some quote unquote romance with essentially the enemy of her mom's son, and it's just a lot of drama. This book has an almost 4.6 star rating on Goodreads, which honestly shocks me. When I first read it, I was just getting back into reading. There was a lot of hype around it. I was influenced by my friends, and I pretty much enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more at the time, but looking back, I don't think it was that good. Was it entertaining? Sure. But was it well written? No. The writing style feels like a strange mix of modern slang and more traditional first person fantasy writing. The setting is trying to feel older and more serious, but the dialogue and overall tone makes it feel very 2020s. It creates a weird disconnect throughout the book. It also feels like Rebecca Yarros relies heavily on constant twists and cliffhangers, even small ones, to keep readers hooked instead of building strong characters or a more thoughtful plot. Almost every chapter ends with some kind of reveal or surprise. Even if it's just something super small, it still has to end with something, and it drives me crazy. It starts to feel exhausting rather than exciting or compelling. The story feels very twist driven instead of character driven, essentially. The romance, like I said before, also didn't really work for me. It's marketed as enemies to lovers, but it never fully feels that way. because the attraction is like immediately obvious. They are never enemies. It's like you said, it was more Romeo Juliet. It's like a forbidden love, except it's
Yes.
marketed incorrectly. A lot of the tension in the relationship also depends on miscommunication later on, which is so frustrating. And so many people hate that trope, but it gets used anyway. I honestly think the story would have just benefited from less modern slang in the way that they talk and developing the relationship more slowly instead of just rushing into it and immediately jumping into the sex scenes like halfway through the first book when there's supposed to be five. So I have no idea how the story is going to go, how their relationship's going to build. I don't even know if I'm going to read the last two books. I'm on the fence of it. Like, there was a huge twist at the end of Onyx Storm, and I still don't know if I want to read it, you know?
I guess I didn't realize there's supposed to be 5 books. I knew there was gonna be more than 3, but I didn't realize it was supposed to be 5. I still have not read Onyx Storm. Like I said, I feel like I need to reread the first 2 to read Onyx Storm, so I'm kind of putting it off. But yeah, I I agree. Like, it's good, like, it's alright, but it wasn't the way everyone talked about it, like, work. Like, all the girls at work were like, "Oh my gosh, have you read this book? Have you read this book yet?" And so finally read it, and I was just like, "It was alright. I don't see, like, what you guys are saying that it's just this amazing book." Like, yeah, it was good, but not how you guys are saying it is. I don't know.
So now to our underhyped books. Haley, want to start?
So the underhyped book I brought is Lone Wolf by Jodi Picoult. I don't know how to say her last name, but I do have the book. My dog chewed the dust cover off of it, so there. But a little bit about this book. The story centers on Luke Warren, a world-renowned wolf expert who lived among wild wolves for years to study them. His life is upended when he and his teenage daughter, Kara, are involved in a devastating car accident. While Kara suffers from minor injuries, Luke is left in a vegetative state with little hope of recovery. Edward, Luke's estranged son, returns to find his father on life support and, believing Luke would never want to live in a compromised state, advocates for the removal of life support and organ donation. Driven by guilt and desperate for a miracle, Kara opposes Edward. She believes her father is a fighter and wants to keep him alive at all costs. As siblings take their dispute to court, she weaves in several subplots that complicate the ethics of the situation. Kara is harboring a secret about the night of the accident that fuels her desperation to keep Luke alive. Georgie, Luke's ex-wife, is caught in the middle, torn between her children and her new life. The chapters alternate with Luke's past experiences, living with the wolf pack, and present day with each family member. So I read this book about almost 10 years ago. It was probably like 9 years ago. And I really enjoyed it. I think this was the first book I read by her. And I know she has like My Sister's Keeper and some other really known books, but this was my very first read by her. And one of my favorite things about it was how each chapter shifts perspectives between the different family members. And it slowly pulls you deeper into their emotional world instead of just telling the story from one angle. I also loved the flashbacks to Luke's life studying and living with the wolves. She added this fascinating layer that showed just how consumed he was by that world and how that obsession shaped his family in ways that they're still dealing with. It's a really interesting read overall, but it also gets pretty heart-wrenching at times as everything unravels and you see how disconnected they've really become. I gave it 5 stars, and honestly, I don't hear a lot of people talking about this book or even mention it, which is kind of a shame because it stuck with me a lot more than I expected it would. And it's also a shame that this one flies under the radar compared to some of her other hits because the wolf research alone in this book is so unique. The structure of her novels, kind of like where you get the tragedy through everyone's eyes, always makes the moral dilemma feel that much more personal to me.
See, and that does sound really interesting, and I've never even heard of this book before. So definitely underhyped.
I think my mom suggested this one for me, and I don't wanna say my mom and I read different things because she reads a lot of mystery, but I feel like she's more straight, like, detective mystery, and I'm more thriller, and therefore, we don't really read the same books, so I took this recommendation with, like, a grain of salt. I was like, "Eh, my mom and I don't really read the same things, and we don't necessarily, like the same things sometimes." But I really enjoyed this book, and as I've gotten older, I feel like we've been able to recommend books for each other, and they're better. Like, I end up liking the books that she recommends, and she normally likes the books I recommend for her too. But this was an excellent book, and like I said, I don't hear people ever talk about it, and I do recommend it from time to time because it was very good when I read it. I haven't reread it since, but yeah, I really liked it.
So for my book, it has a little bit of hype around it, but I feel like it could have so much more. Um, this is this is where it ends, and I don't know how to say the author's name. It's Marieke Nijkamp, I think. um, this one is a really intense and emotional story that takes place over the course of just 54 minutes during a school shooting. So, definite trigger warnings with this book, but it is so good. Wh- What starts as a completely normal day at high school in Alabama quickly turns terrifying when the auditorium doors are suddenly locked and a student opens fire. The story follows multiple students as they try to survive, protect the people they care about, and make sense of what's happening around them. Each character has their own connection to the shooter, which adds a lot of emotional weight to the story and shows how complicated fear, grief, and relationships can be. Because the book happens in such a short amount of time, it feels really fast paced and tense the entire way through. It's definitely a heavy read, but it focuses a lot on the emotional impact of tragedy, the bonds between people, and how quickly everything can change in a single moment. I was really into this book. I used to think that I lean towards romance and fantasy, but after reading this book last year, I really opened my mind to literary fiction and thrillers. I didn't read many thrillers after that, um, but I was more open to it. I gave this book a 4.5 stars, but Goodreads only has it as a 3.67 as an average, which I am baffled by. I never hear people talk about this book, but it is so good. I stayed up reading this book because I just had to know what happened next. I also annotated this one, and it was very enjoyable. There was interesting quotes on literally nearly every page. This book felt so raw and real and terrifying to imagine. The biggest thing for me was the fact that 54 minutes could span an entire book was just a crazy concept. It felt so fast paced, yet the entire story was moving so slowly because you're going minute by minute. The writing style also made it very easy to get into the minds and motivations of the characters that we followed, and nothing, literally nothing, felt out of place. It was so good.
I have never heard of this book, but that sounds super good. I'll probably add it to my TBR.
Yeah,
The cover
it
alone,
was good.
here we go back to this. The cover alone, I'm drawn to that cover. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
With the chalk, I
I
think
would
it's
yeah,
like a bullet shot the chalk.
yeah. I would if I saw this in the bookstore, this would be one I picked up to, like, read the back of it.
Yeah. In the back, it's literally the synopsis is so short. It's just
Oh, wow.
a couple timestamps and a few lines with it. It's crazy. It drew me in so much.
So, you said this book is, like, minute by minute. Is it different characters' perspectives too, or is it just minute by minute, this is, like, what is happening?
So you get literally from first chapter 10:01. It's you can't see it on the screen, but
Yeah,
10:01 to
that's okay.
10:02 with one character, and then the next chapter is 10:02 to 10:04 with another character. So you're going minute
Okay.
by minute, but each time it switches who it follows. I think it's like maybe 4 characters. I don't remember exactly. It's not too hard to follow, but it's really good.
Well, you know me, I love the multiple perspectives. So that's this one. It's every chapter is a different character. And it's kind of fun. I don't know if you can see it, but like Edward is in like this font. And then like Luke is in like this like italic font. So like all the fonts for each character are different. For yeah, each character it's a different font. And I looked up mine on Goodreads and this was a 3.74.
Yeah. And you gave it a 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
If those books sound interesting to you, please go check them out. They deserve more hype. This Is Where It Ends and Lone Wolf. They're both are very good. Go read them. They're so good. Give them more hype.
Yes. I said I'm definitely gonna probably read because that sounds super good. Never heard of it. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to episode 5 of the Curated Pages podcast.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. It really helps support us and helps us grow. Until next time.
Stay lost in the pages.
Bye. Bye.